Alright, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started now. This is going to be Tech Thursdays, episode 104. We're going to be talking about the Switch 2 in all full detail because the Switch 2 was finally revealed this week. We're going to talk about some hardware price increases that are probably going to occur. There's a couple things that have been happening, at least in the US this week, that have some trickle-down effects. We'll talk about that. And then also, Monster Hunter Wilds Title Update 1 is out later this evening, so it'll probably occur like right after this live stream. But other than that, there's not a whole lot more to talk about besides those things. I think one thing also is something I want to say about DDR5, because DDR5 is probably going to hit a massive price increase here in the next coming weeks and months because of the announcement from Samsung and Micron. So we'll talk about that, but that's going to be the show for episode 104. So if you're new to the channel, do get subscribed. We do these weekly Tech Thursdays live streams, and I will answer questions in the chat. So feel free to get your questions in regarding any of these topics. It could also be hardware, computer hardware related topics that are unrelated. We answer them live, so as time allows. So how's everybody doing? This is kind of a strange week. Other than the Switch 2 announcement, there's not a lot of like good things to talk about. Scalpers buy 40% marked up, 9070 XT, 2 a.m. in the UK. Oh wow. Yeah, the people over there on the other side of the pond, they've tuned in pretty late. This show is very late at night or early morning, depending on where you are. I guess like people in, I think like, what time is it in Japan right now? It's probably like 10 a.m. in the morning in Tokyo right now on a Friday. so like Hong Kong and those guys similar. I think they're like an hour behind Tokyo, if not the same time zone. Yeah, this generation, the GPU generation is kind of like not a good one. At least the NVIDIA cards are not really good this generation. The AMD cards, if there was something from AMD that was like one level above 9070 XT, that would be really nice. I think that generation would have been really, really good. But overall, this GPU generation, at least NVIDIA's 50 series is kind of a fail in my mind. I think a lot of people probably share the same opinion. The AMD cards, they're good. I mean, if you can find one at MSRP, but like, other than that, I mean, it's pretty much Intel still bringing up the rear in terms of the value proposition, although Intel has some severe driver problems that they got to fix. If you actually wanted to use Intel for, like, streaming, for example, we kind of looked at that. It was very disappointing a couple weeks back with Assassin's Creed Shadows. But, yeah, not a good time to be in the market for a GPU. So let's go ahead and look at the first thing here we want to talk about. It's the Nintendo Switch 2. This is probably the biggest news announcement in the tech world this week. The Nintendo Switch 2, finally, there have been hands-on impressions from the press in New York City earlier this week. There was an event happening where Nintendo was letting people actually like hold the Switch, play the games in both docked mode and undocked mode, basically get a full impression of the actual console. So a couple of things. It is not OLED based. It is traditional LCD, which is actually not a bad thing. See, I feel like a lot of people seem to think that OLED is the only display technology worth getting in this day and age, and that's not true. So they must be going with some kind of mini LED, because like with the standard LCD, they can get better battery life than OLED. Also, there's no risk of burn-in. A lot of games have HUD elements that are static elements on the screen all the time. So if you're playing one of those games for like hundreds of hours, for example, there's no fear of like burn-in with traditional LCD. Now, it's really not that big of a deal on OLED nowadays because of the algorithms that exist to counteract that. But that is another thing that you don't really have to worry about on the Switch 2. Battery life is pretty decent for what it is. It's much larger. The screen is physically larger. I think it's like 7.9 inches large. So it's about an 8-inch screen, full 1080p. And to be honest, a screen like this doesn't need to be more than 1080p. This is totally fine for this physical size. 4K versus 1080 at this physical panel makes no difference. That's why a lot of smartphones are actually moving away from 4K displays, and they're actually downgrading modern phones to 2K or 1080, that kind of stuff. So this is totally fine as far as I'm concerned. The main thing also is the Joy-Cons are brand new. They use magnets to attach now. There's no longer that sliding mechanism, so they attach like just straight on and then they stick in place. So the impressions were that it's very sturdy. It probably is not going to become really wobbly with the Joy-Cons hanging off the sides, but that remains to be seen. The kickstand is also vastly improved compared to the original Switch, although the Switch OLED had a very good kickstand as well. So this is probably going to be similar to that. It covers the full body of the console, whereas the original Switch, the kickstand was like this cheap little plastic thing. It was actually the cover for the memory card or the micro SD card. And yeah, it was not very high quality at all in the original model, the launch model. So the other thing, the peripherals. So the accessories include a camera as well as the new Switch 2 Pro controller. So there is a new Pro controller. I think it's also fully compatible from what I saw with the newer GameCube controller. When I say newer, it's still a GameCube controller in terms of the layout and how it feels, but I think it's like USB-C instead. So it's compatible with all of that stuff as well. And then backwards compatibility, it should be able to play almost all of the original Switch games. I think there are a number of exceptions though, but that could change over time due to upgrades. Also, the Joy-Cons can be used as a mouse or mice. So you've got the ability to stand it vertical on a desk and use it as a mouse. So that should be interesting to see how games like Metroid Prime 4 or any of the shooter games, how those control with that setup versus the standard controller-based setup. So it's interesting because it feels like, to me, my impression is that you can actually use it in the, what do they call this mode? The desk mode, not docked mode, but desk kickstand mode. I don't know what you call this, like desk mode, where you're actually looking at the screen, but the controllers are detached. So you're basically using it like a mouse, or just using the controllers remotely from the console, but you're still using the console screen. So I don't know what this mode is called. There's a name for it. I call it like desk mode because I don't know what the colloquial name is, but I feel like that is actually a more relevant way. I guess tabletop mode is what they call it. Well, that's more for like multiplayer games, but you guys get what I'm saying. So the thing is, it looks like it's gonna be a pretty good console. So $449, that to me seems totally reasonable considering how expensive some of the Steam-based handhelds are. The Switch 2 I think it's priced appropriately from my point of view. So at $449 with all the stuff that it comes with, I think that's good. So yeah, I don't see any problem with the price at all. Anyone who's complaining about the price clearly doesn't have a handheld, or they don't have a modern handheld. So the thing about the games, the game prices it's not all $80 games. So Nintendo is going with a variable pricing structure for the games, which is interesting because the question is, how do they determine what the price of a game should be? Or maybe it's up to the developer to determine the price. Maybe Nintendo doesn't set a baseline price or a maximum price. But I do think that it's a newer approach because that way, like, I guess a AAA game or a first party game, like a Zelda game, for example, or a Metroid or a Mario game, those might command like the full price, like the $80 price. But an indie developer could price significantly lower if they want. And I think that can help them get more visibility and potentially get more sales. Because the way I look at it is, let's say there's a baseline price for Nintendo games on the Switch 2 to be like $60 or $70. So like $59.99 or $69.99. If an indie developer makes a game that doesn't have as much content as like a Zelda game, but they have to price it at a minimum of like $60, that could potentially hurt their sales. It's like, yeah, they stand to earn more money per unit sold, but they're probably going to make less sales overall because there's probably a lot of people out there that are not going to buy the indie game just because they don't trust that indie developer or their name is not well established. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I mean, I'm just looking at it from my point of view. I'm not someone who plays a lot of indie games, so I'm very skeptical when it comes to evaluating or considering the purchase of an indie game. So if an indie game is like $70 and I know nothing about that company and it's like, okay, the reviews are pretty solid and people are saying it's good, I still might not get the game because I just don't know if I trust the developer. You guys see what I'm saying? Whereas if the developer if Nintendo is operating on a variable price structure, meaning the developer could choose to price it less than that. So they could price it at like $34.99 or $39.99 or like some number that's significantly lower than like $70 or $80. Then someone like me, who normally doesn't play indie games, might actually give that developer a chance. I might actually consider getting the game because the barrier to entry is much, much lower. Because the price point is significantly lower, there's a lot less risk of buying the game and feeling buyer's remorse if I'm disappointed in the game. You see what I'm saying? So I kind of think that is a pretty good thing that Nintendo's going with. So this variable price structure might actually be a better setup compared to the way things were currently with the actual original Switch. So, but yeah, I think the pricing for the games is probably a really good thing, and the console itself looks pretty compelling. So, as someone who does not have a modern handheld gaming console, I am most likely going to be buying the Switch 2 on day one. So I'm making that declaration now, so you guys can expect to see Nintendo Switch 2 content on this channel. We will be live streaming Switch 2 games from launch later this summer. So I think it's on sale. It's available June 4th or June 5th, depending on where you are in the world. But yeah, I will probably getting this. I've skipped the Steam Deck completely. I've skipped the ROG Ally. I've skipped like basically all of the, we'll say the Windows handheld clones. But I will probably get the Switch 2. The Switch 2 looks like it's a pretty good one. The price makes sense. $450. I'm surprised it's $450. I thought it was going to be like $500 or $550. But knowing what I know about Nintendo, the price point being priced this low is actually pretty good because they're giving you essentially a console that can scale all the way to 4K. It can output in the docked mode at 4K 60 frames per second. Now obviously it's going to have to use some sort of mixture of checkerboard rendering and DLSS upscaling to be able to pull something like that off. But the Switch 2 games are also not going to be as graphically demanding, we'll say, as games on the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X. So I think this is offering compelling value. I don't know how powerful it is in the docked mode relative to the other consoles. What I do know is that in the handheld mode, so when it's on battery, it is weaker than a PS4 Pro. But when it's in docked mode, it's probably a little bit more powerful than a PS4 Pro. So, probably a good value, considering that it has the potential to perform like a, we'll just say for worst case scenario, in docked mode, it performs like a PS4 Pro, but you got to remember, $450 gets you PS4 Pro plus the ability to play on the go because it is a mobile handheld console and it has a lot of flexibility. And, you know, the dock itself now has an Ethernet RJ45 port, which means that it actually has full LAN wired internet connectivity when in the docked mode, which means that downloading games are going to be significantly faster, downloading updates can be faster. The new SoC from NVIDIA is in here, so it gets access to the DLSS framework for upscaling, and DLSS has been the top performer historically for the upscalers. So Nintendo does have a pretty good value proposition here. I think a lot of people are not really looking at it from that lens. I think a lot of people are just comparing it to the original Switch. Like, oh, it's more expensive than the original Switch. But the thing is, guys, this thing is like significantly better than the original Switch. And the first Switch, the Switch OLED is still going to be around going forward. That's not end of life yet. So there's going to be overlap where it's like someone can buy a Switch or a Switch OLED or a Switch 2 until eventually it's just going to be the Switch 2. And probably when they discontinue the Switch, they're going to come out with probably a Switch 2 OLED at some point in the future. Who knows? Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. I would have liked, the only thing that I would have liked to have seen in this setup for the console is a bigger battery. I think the battery life could be better if Nintendo opted to use a higher amperage battery. So I think that might be a little bit of a underwhelming thing as far as I'm concerned. But overall, I think the whole package is pretty good. So yeah, like 10x faster than the OG. Yeah. I mean, this thing, guys, this thing is basically like a PS4 Pro. Or technically a little bit better than a PS4 Pro, potentially. I mean, it definitely has like a better access to upscaling technology and things that the Pro never had access to. So and you can run it in handheld mode. It has handheld mode, it has tabletop mode, it has docked mode. It has like 3 different ways to use it. The Pro was a stationary console, you know, connected to a TV or a computer monitor, and that's all it was. This thing has way more flexibility, so I kind of think this is the way to go. Like this is the console, this is the handheld console to get this year. You can play Cyberpunk 2077 on it. You can also play GameCube games on it from what I've seen. And I am totally looking forward to playing Soul Calibur 2 on the Switch 2 later this year. So Soul Calibur 2, Legend of Zelda games, all those games, my entire backlog, all the Xenoblade Chronicles games, Xenoblade Chronicles X Remastered, Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 and 3. I need to finish all 3 of them. So we're probably going to play like all 3 of those games, plus Chronicles X, plus the Zelda games. Let's just say I have like a really, really big backlog of Switch games that I need to finish on the Switch 2. And with the Switch 2 coming out, now I have an excuse to spend the second half of this year basically going through the Switch 2 backlog, because there's literally like nothing else coming out this year. Like, as far as I'm concerned, second half of 25 is basically Ninja Gaiden 4 whenever that comes out, and other than that there's like no other games. So that just leaves the entire like GTR going to like Switch 2 content for the second half of this year. That's pretty much it. So besides Monster Hunter, of course, because like Monster Hunter is basically going to be the only game at this point for the rest of the year, except for the little, like, I guess the bump in the road, which is going to be Elden Ring Night Rain. That will also get a lot of attention on this channel. Yeah. So what do you guys think of the Switch? Like, what's your impressions of the Switch 2? Like, who here is getting a Switch 2? Let's start a poll, actually. Let's start a poll. This is a very simple poll. Are you getting a Switch 2? Yes or no? Very, very simple. It's a yes or no question. Okay, we got some people voting. It's kind of 50-50 right now. 40-60 split. We got 33 concurrents and only 8 people voted. $13 votes. You're getting the yeah, I'm probably getting the Mario Kart bundle day one as well. Yeah. $4.99. You get the Mario Kart and the console. Man, I'm thinking like I probably need to get a SD card. Oh, that's what I forgot to say. I knew there was some technical thing that I wanted to mention. So there's a couple of things. The docking station has an active cooling fan, like a laptop fan, on the docking station this time to help add supplemental cooling to the console. The other thing, besides the Ethernet port that's on the docking station now, it also has, it uses the SD, it's like a micro SD Express. So you need to use a micro SD Express card, not a regular micro SD card. Now, I think you can use a micro SD card. I don't know what will happen if you use one, but my understanding is that you're supposed to use micro SD Express, which basically means the Nintendo Switch 2 will be able to take advantage of PCIe Gen 3 NVMe speeds, because micro SD Express is similar in terms of the read-write speeds, especially on the random 4Ks, at Gen 3 SSD speeds. So it's clearly not going to be as fast in terms of file transfers, read and write speeds, as a PS5, because a PS5 has Gen 4 SSD speeds, and this Switch 2 has Gen 3 SSD speeds. But you have to imagine, though, like, first of all, it's a micro SD card at the end of the day. It's not a full NVMe. There's no, like, DRAM or anything. So it's also a battery device. It's a mobile device, so you kind of want it to have good battery life. So I think if they were running, like, Gen 4 speeds, it would probably drain the battery even faster. So that's probably... I can tell from the specs that the engineers were trying to balance, like, the battery life and the performance level, and also make it feel like it's a justifiable upgrade over the Switch, trying to juggle all these different parameters and these system requirements to get people a successor to the Switch. The Switch was a very successful console commercially, so I think the Switch 2 will also succeed. There has been a resurgence in interest in the handheld space, primarily because of the Steam Deck and then the other, like the Windows-based handhelds. But I think the Switch 2 has a good chance at maintaining its industry. It's kind of setting its place as the industry standard for mobile console gaming, if you will. So I kind of think that this is probably going to be the most compelling option this year. Okay, so we got 20 votes, and I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. So it looks like almost 50-50 split. 45 or 55% of you said no, you're not getting a Switch 2. 45% of you said yes. So that's almost half and half. I can't help but wonder if the people who said no are either never going to get one at all, or if they're waiting for like a Switch 2 OLED or like a refresh model to come out a couple of years later. So I myself always like to have the launch edition model. I feel like most of the time, although the Switch is an interesting case because the Switch did see an OLED model come out, which is kind of a more premium version, even compared to the original launch model. But usually, the way consoles go, the launch model is usually the best version of that console because it's the one that has like all the bells and whistles. The revisions are usually cost optimized versions of the console that they've cut corners to reduce costs, to become more profitable per unit sold. So they usually omit things. Like with the PS5, the first revision had the full metal. The second revision had less metal on the cooling, but the fan ran a little bit faster to compensate. Then they got rid of that model altogether with the Slim, which is an even more cut down, cost reduced version of the PS5. But they're able to do that because the SoC was revised. So it uses a little bit less power. Then they came out with the Pro. Now the Pro doesn't count because that's like a completely different version of the console. But you look at like PS5 and all the revisions up to the Slim, it's a bunch of cost-reduced versions of the console. Likewise, we go back and look at all of the PlayStation consoles, really. Every single time Sony came out with a newer version of the console, it was always a cost-reduced version of the console. So you look at the PS3 being the prime example. The original PS3 had the ability to play PS1 and full backwards compatibility PS2 games. Then they got rid of the Emotion Engine. Then it only had the graphic synthesizer. Then they got rid of that altogether, so you couldn't even play PS2 games at all on the PS3. Then they got the Slim one out. Then that was even more cost reduced. Then they made like another Slim that didn't have the LEDs and it had no chrome. So it was even like more cost down. Then they came out with the cheapest PS3, the lowest cost final edition PS3, which had that cheap little like sliding door thing, not even a slot loader disk drive. So you see what I'm saying? Like every single time a console gets a newer version, it's always like a worse version compared to the previous one. So I think like as someone who wants to get the Switch 2, I want the launch model because that's probably going to be the most premium feeling version of the console. Now, maybe they'll come up with an OLED. Maybe they won't. We don't know. The OLED one might be a nicer version of this. So, but that's kind of almost like a Pro, but not really because the hardware didn't change other than the screen. But we can't really predict the future on those sort of things. Since Nintendo is a little bit more unpredictable compared to the others because they, like the Switch came out in 2017, the Wii U came out in 2012, so there was like a 5-year gap, well, 4.5-year gap between those two. Then the Switch was so successful, so Nintendo didn't feel like they needed to do anything, so they had a really long runway to develop the Switch 2. Switch 2 comes out now in 2025. That's literally more than 8 years. It's like 8 years and a couple of months before, well, between Switch 1 and Switch 2. So, yeah, that says a lot in terms of like how successful that console was. But yeah, this one, as someone who's been out of the loop on handhelds for a very long time, I'll be getting back into the handheld market with the Switch 2. I've made that decision now. From watching all the first impressions of this and reading articles about it and listening to people talk about it, I'm choosing to get this over like a Steam Deck or any of the Windows things. I mean, literally the only thing I could think of that I would actually play on, because people have asked me, like, what do you think about the ROG Ally? And I'm thinking to myself, like, real talk, if I had an ROG Ally, the only game I would play on that is like Honkai Star Rail. Or maybe Genshin Impact. Just log in to do Genshin Impact dailies. That's literally the only thing that I would use the ROG Ally for. And that's the reason why I am not buying an ROG Ally. Because I don't need an ROG Ally to play Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail. I don't see any other reason to have one, to be honest. So, maybe I don't know how to use handhelds. At least Windows ones. So, because if like the first thing that comes to mind when I think of like Windows, not just the ROG Ally, but like the Legion Go and the MSI Claw, the only thing that I think of, Genshin Impact dailies and Honkai Star Rail dailies. That's it. Like 2 games, that's it. Why would I buy a handheld for like those 2 games? I don't even play those 2 games anymore. So that's why. So the Switch 2, meanwhile, I'll be playing like all those Switch games that I need to finish, plus the Switch 2 games. So this one makes a whole lot more sense to me. Okay. Now, speaking of Steam Deck is interesting because that's one that I almost always think of getting and then I never do. We may do something interesting later this year with Steam OS. Because before there was the Steam Deck, some people don't know this, but it used to be that you could build your own Steam, they called it the Steam Box. You could build a Steam Box, which was basically a gaming PC that ran the Steam OS. So we might build a Steam Box later this year. Like we might live stream the PC build, and then all it's going to do is run like Steam OS. So it's basically going to be a desktop computer running Steam OS. So the Steam Machine / Steam Box. We may actually do that later this year. So that's why I don't need to buy a Steam Deck, because I can just build a Steam Box. So, okay. So that is those are my thoughts on the Switch 2. I will be getting one. Hopefully this thing is like not sold out instantly. I also need to consider getting a memory, what is it? Micro SD Express. Micro SD Express. My recommendation is 256 gigabyte or more. I think the maximum that they said was 2 terabyte. If I can find a 2 terabyte micro SD, I'm gonna get a 2 terabyte micro SD. I have not seen one, but realistically, if I can't find a 2 terabyte, I'm gonna get a 1 terabyte. So, but that's what I'm gonna do. That's my plan. That's the GTR plan. Get a Switch 2 and a micro SD Express 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte. That's my plan. I may need to look at getting one of those memory cards now rather than later, before there's a run on the market. I did the same thing last year with the PS5 Pro, because the PS5 Pro, there was a run on the disc reader, the disc drive, the Blu-ray disc drive for the PS5. I bought one of those like months before the PS5 Pro came out, so I didn't have to deal with it being out of stock, or like I didn't have to deal with scalpers, because, you know, like I bought it like way before people knew that they needed to get one. So, but people already knew at that point that the PS5 Pro would require a disc add-on if you wanted the disc add-on. So same deal here. Like the memory, this is going to require a memory express card. So that one, you probably want to get one of those now before there's a run up on the market on that, because that's if you're going to get one of these. So that'll be my recommendation. So, okay. So that is the Switch 2. Let's see. There was another article here. Nintendo Switch 2 confirms the support. Okay, we already know this. It has DLSS support, and it has ray tracing capability. 10x performance of the original Switch. So it has 1,000 engineer years of effort. Okay, this doesn't even sound like something that Nintendo would write. This sounds like something that they just copied from NVIDIA. This sounds like something that Jensen would say. 1,000 engineer years of effort across every element. Because it's all AI assisted, I bet. So that's why they're going to claim 1,000 engineer years. RT cores to support real-time ray tracing for lighting, reflections, and shadows. Tensor cores to support NVIDIA deep learning super sampling. Tensor cores also enable AI-powered face tracking and background removal during video chat. Oh, they did show this. They did show that in the preview. NVIDIA G-Sync-powered VRR in handheld mode. 10x the graphics performance of the Nintendo Switch. Improved tools. See, that would put it like kind of around a PS4 Pro. Maybe a little bit better than that, actually. Improved tools and optimized APIs for faster, more efficient game creation. So those are all the things. I think there wasn't really a lot of things talked about from Nintendo. Nintendo did say, we use DLSS upscaling technology, and that's something that we need to use as we develop games. See, guys, upscaling is not going away. Upscaling is the future. It's here to stay. And when it comes to the hardware, it is able to output to a TV at a maximum of 4K 60. Whether the developer is going to use that as a native resolution or get it to upscale is something that the software developer can choose. They're most likely going to be using upscale. I think it opens up a lot of options for software developers to choose from. Yes, the GPU supports ray tracing. As with DLSS, I believe this provides yet another option for the software developers to use and a tool for them. Okay, so very good. Here it is. The Switch 2 is powered by an NVIDIA Ampere architecture. That means RTX 30 series. 2048 CUDA cores with its 8-core CPU will include 12x ARM Cortex A78AE cores. Okay. So the Switch 2 is capable of 1.71 teraflops in handheld mode with a GPU clocked at 561 megahertz. While in the docked mode, it can go up to 3.1 teraflops thanks to the higher GPU speed of 1 gigahertz. Okay, I don't know if those are true, but that sounds believable. So that is a Switch 2. Okay. Are people impressed with this? Does this sound impressive for a handheld? As someone who doesn't know much about handhelds, I think it's impressive. So with the Ampere technology, I think this is pretty good. It's going to be easy to get large volumes of this, I would imagine, for Nintendo, because it's such an old design. Like, Ampere is, like, 2020. So, this is 5-year-old technology at this point, coming out now. So that means they can get some economies of scale going. This is going to be Samsung 8 nanometer node. This is going to be good stuff. That's good stuff. Samsung 8 nanometer on a handheld. Yeah, this is RTX 3050 Max Q. This is a 3050, guys. RTX 3050. Very nice. RTX 3050 in a handheld. Man, you know what that means, though? I just realized something. This is an RTX 3050. That means that Ryzen AI Max is better than this in gaming. Like, Ryzen AI Max, Strix Halo is better than an RTX 4060. So Strix Halo is better than RTX 4060. Switch 2 is an RTX 3050 Max Q. Think about that for a second. We'll leave it at that. So, okay, that kind of shows you the sort of mobile market that the Switch 2 is coming into. But remember, this is tailor-made for a certain demographic. You know, this is not meant for someone who wants AI desktop replacement. Okay, moving on to the next article here. Amazon. Oh, here we go. This is gonna be a good one. This is gonna be a nice controversial article. Amazon starts reserving AMD RDNA 4 and RTX 50 series GPUs for Prime members to bring, as they claim, better availability to gamers. So basically, I like how they put this. I like how they put this Prime logo like right on top of this red devil. So they're doing basically right here. Here we have a Sapphire Pulse Radeon RX 9070 XT, and it says exclusively for Prime members. The sad thing about this is applied not only to direct Amazon sales, but to third-party Amazon Marketplace. So this screenshot proves that they're doing third-party Amazon Marketplace sellers are now being reserved for exclusive Prime members. So you basically have to be an Amazon Prime member if you're going to buy a graphics card on Amazon going forward. So, but looking at this listing here, I can tell you right now, this is a scalper listing, just FYI. That's what a scalper listing looks like. Because the Pulse doesn't cost $1,050. The MSRP of this is $599. Just FYI, for those that are not in the loop, do not spend this much money because you're overpaying. Even if it's a Prime exclusive, because that's a ripoff. Okay, here's another one. Here's another example. Asus TUF Gaming GeForce RTX 5070 12GB OC edition for $740. Exclusively for Prime members. This item is reserved for Prime members. Members only. Oh man, this is a throwback to the pandemic era. We are living in the pandemic era again, except there's no pandemic. Like this is exactly the same thing that Best Buy did during the pandemic. Best Buy set up the the Best Buy subscription plan. It was some ridiculous thing. It's like pay Best Buy $200 or so, or like I think it was like $200. It was either $100 or $200. I don't know because I didn't sign up for it. But I remember someone was telling me about it. I remember seeing an article about it. Best Buy was locking the sales of GPUs behind their. Well, okay, they weren't like fully locking it down like Amazon is doing here. What they were doing was they were making it so that if you had the Best Buy subscription membership, you would get first dibs on being able to buy the GPUs when they did the GPU drop. So like if let's say they got like 130 80s. Let's say they got 130 80s in, because that was the card that everybody wanted back then. Founders Edition RTX 3080 exclusively on Best Buy. But then they made an exclusive Best Buy Founders Edition 3080 exclusive subscription membership first access. So all the people who were paying for the Best Buy membership, they had like a full 24 hours to wipe out the stock. Sometimes it was more than 24 hours to get access to buy one and notified about it before anyone who wasn't paying for the service got the notification. Like Best Buy was literally making it so that if you sign up for their subscription service, you get first dibs, exclusive access to buy the Founders Edition 3080s, 3090s, not even just Founders Edition. It was just basically like all the graphics cards. But we all know that if you're in the US and you want Founders Edition Nvidia, Best Buy is the only game in town. They are the exclusive distributor of the Founders Edition graphics cards. That is the secret spot to go get them. A lot of people ask me, like, where do you buy Founders Edition? Like, well, it's pretty well known if you're in the know. It's called Best Buy. So if you buy one from anywhere except Best Buy, you bought it off a scalper. Or you bought it off of a disty like XS, which like someone like Micro Center sometimes gets access to. But that's not normal. So it's Best Buy or no one. So now Amazon is starting to do Prime membership exclusivity for access to buy the 50 series and the 9070 XT and 9070 cards. So it's happening. It definitely feels like we're back in like 2021. This feels like 2021. We've gone back in time 4 years. It's weird. I feel like I'm living in 2021 again, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Okay, well, that's it, guys. I don't know what you guys think about this. I think the point is they're trying to combat scalpers because, like, does a scalper want to sign up for an Amazon Prime subscription if all they want to do is, like, resell a bunch of GPUs? I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Okay. So, do we want to talk about this next one? This next one's kind of... So, let's talk about this one real quick. So, the Trump tariffs went into... I think they went into play, like, now, today. So, it says... This article says... The tariffs could destroy the consumer PC market. Now, remember, this is strictly referring to the PC DIY building computer, basically the computer market. We're not talking about food. We're not talking about aviation. We're not talking about agriculture or medical or pharmaceutical or automotive. None of that stuff. This is only talking about the PC market, personal computer market. Prices might rise by up to 50%. So they came up with these numbers. I don't know like how they calculate it, but Morgan Stanley did the calculation on PCs and other things like smartphones and IT products. Here are some examples of what they came up with, because some of this stuff is like shocking. So, the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5090 with an MSRP of $2,000. If it is affected, now they claim that with the tariff in place, you can expect anywhere from 25% to 50% increase in the price. So, if it is the Best Buy Founders Edition, the Best Buy Founders Edition at 25% tariff will become roughly $2,500. At 50% increase, which this makes sense because it's easy math. It's literally $2,000. You add 50% to $2,000. That means you add a $1,000 markup. So now at 50% increase, it's now $3,000. So a Best Buy 5090 Founders Edition exclusive at 50% tariff increase will become $3,000, which means, and I like that they went with the Founders Edition Best Buy pricing, because this isn't even AIB. This is like the best case. This is the lowest cost price. The lowest cost price is the Founders Edition card at $2,000. So if the lowest priced 5090 can become $3,000, imagine what will happen to the Asus 5090 Astral, the Strix Astral. How much will that cost with all these markups? Because I don't even know like what the price of that even is anymore. Because the prices of GPUs has gotten so out of control, like I haven't even paid attention to it. I just gave up. I just like stopped looking at the graphics card market because I don't even know what it is. Like I don't even know what's the proper price anymore for 50 series cards. Like I personally don't care, because the 50 series is kind of dead to me at this point. It's kind of a meme. It's trash and it's a joke. So it's like I don't really care if it becomes $3,000. I don't even care if it becomes like $7,000, to be honest. Like it can become $10,000 for all I care. It doesn't really matter. It's an irrelevant graphics card at this point. So here's another one. GeForce RTX 5080. MSRP Best Buy Founders Edition $999. So with the 50% increase, the Founders Edition becomes $1,500. Here's some other examples. AMD Ryzen 7, the 9800X3D at $500 MSRP can become up to $750. Can you get this? The 9800X3D with a 50% markup due to the tariff can become more expensive than the current price of the better flagship 9950X3D. So that is some food for thought on how this is going to change the PC hardware market. It's going to make this hobby significantly more challenging for the hardware enthusiasts who like to build their own desktop computer. But this is not only going to affect the PC DIY market, although I think the PC DIY will be impacted the most because system builders and pre-builds will be able to somewhat cover, they'll somewhat be able to absorb some of this, versus like if you're buying individual parts, good luck, because all these parts are going to be incredibly expensive. To give us another example here down at the bottom, the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K at $600 MSRP with a 50% markup. The 285K is now a $900 CPU. So remember, this is just the CPU. You still have to buy the motherboard, and if you're someone who does not already have DDR5, you have to buy DDR5, which leads me into the next article concerning DDR5 memory is expected to get a lot more expensive. Samsung has announced a widespread increase in DRAM and NAND pricing. Micron has announced a similar thing a few weeks ago, that they were warning that they could see some price increases in the price of NAND and now memory chips. So the price of RAM is going to go way up, which is very sad because we had seen the price of DDR5 go down over the last several quarters to the point where now, like I told you guys back in October when we were doing the 9800X3D live stream build, I was telling people now is the time to get on board. Now is the time to upgrade to DDR5. This is the window. Take advantage of the window because we do not know what's going to happen. Sure enough, DDR5 is going to be on the upswing and it's going to start going up again in price, which is sad because we are just now starting to see QDIM come out. We're now starting to see higher capacity density modules come out. So we're starting to see stuff like 64 gigabyte DIMMs. So if you have two 64 gigabyte DIMMs, that's literally 128 gigabytes of RAM on two memory sticks. Expect that to become incredibly expensive. We're talking like $500 or more. So this is going to go up. So this is going to make the PC, building a PC hobby is going to be harder and harder to pull off, because not only are we looking at $750 potentially, somewhere between $600 to $750 9800X3D CPUs, now DDR5 memory is going to go up. And also SSD pricing is also going to go up. Now, it had been going up for the last year, but now with this announcement from Samsung, DRAM and NAND, which implies SSDs, at least Samsung SSDs, are going to go up. And a lot of these are OEM'd from Samsung or Micron. So the only company that has not commented yet is Hynix. So we have heard Micron say that prices are going to go up, and now we have heard Samsung say prices are going to go up. So SK Hynix is going to be like, okay, well, they're doing it, we're going to do it too, because you know how these guys are. So they're going to increase the price as well. Samsung and Micron are now anticipating to raise DRAM, RAM, and SSD pricing, making consumer memory a lot more pricey. This surely isn't a good time for consumers at all, since apart from all the uncertainty in the market associating the tariffs, companies are reportedly trying to combat them by front-running the announcements and da-da-da. Okay, so they're making a bunch of excuses. DRAM and NAND prices are up 3 to 5%, keeping in light the demand from the semiconductor industry. So what's really happening here? So this is what's happening. I'll tell you guys what's actually driving the price of the RAM going up. It's not the tariffs. It is actually... Here we go again. You know what I'm about to say. AI. AI, 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 and AI is driving the price of the DRAM and the NAND, to a lesser extent the NAND, but mostly the DRAM is going up because of AI, 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 and AI. Because the server infrastructure in the enterprise market is still on old DDR4, and those servers are now considered legacy end-of-life devices. So all the companies running those old servers are now considering upgrading to newer platforms, because they're also being told by NVIDIA and their ilk that you need to upgrade your infrastructure to be able to usher in the capabilities of AI for your entire organization. So, because of this, there is now a massive demand for DDR5 starting to build up in the professional business world. This has nothing to do with the tariffs. This has nothing to do with the gamers. This has nothing to do with any of the consumer-based segments. This is strictly the fact that the DDR4 servers are end of life, which means that someone who owns a server with one of those older memory systems can no longer get support from the manufacturer, which means Dell or HP or IBM or Cisco or any of the others who make servers and sell traditional servers to business class customers and enterprises, they are killing support on those DDR4 devices. Because some of those really old ones now are way past the deadline. So, what are you going to replace them with? You're going to replace them with a DDR5 based server. And it lines up that DDR5 prices come down. So now it makes sense for people to upgrade in the business world. So now guess what? You get a run up on memory, which means raise prices. You're going to raise the prices. So it's all kind of like hitting at the same time. You got the tariffs. You got the demand for DRAM in the enterprise world. You got the demand for upgrading the servers. So the chips. Then you got AI. Then you have NVIDIA trying to push AI and convert everybody like AI is the way of the future. So NVIDIA's like, forget about gamers. Leave them in the dust. Let's go all in on AI and let's go. So this is what's happening with the industry. It is changing before my very eyes. It is changing before my very eyes. DDR5 is going to get expensive. So if you're someone who did not upgrade last year, or you're still on the fence of whether or not you should upgrade, well, I'm telling you right now, you have a small window of opportunity here where you still have a little bit of a time frame here to delay an upgrade. But if you wanted to upgrade this year, you pretty much need to go and do that now or real soon. Because unless you want to pay like $100 more for RAM, like who wants to do that? And I fear that Micro Center's wonderful bundles might change because of this. Like if the supply of DDR5 gets constrained enough, where it's severe enough, Micro Center might stop offering their bundle with free DDR5 RAM with the purchase of a CPU. So that's unfortunate if that happens, but that could end up happening. So I guess public service announcement, if you're on the fence about upgrading and you live near a Micro Center, you probably need to go to Micro Center and get a bundle deal with DDR5, a CPU, and a motherboard before those deals either become more expensive, so they're less cost effective, or they just go away altogether. And they just do the traditional bundle where it's like, oh, you get like $20 off a motherboard if you buy it with a CPU. Because that's what they used to do until they started doing this DDR5 free RAM thing. So we're gonna see. This is not a good time to be building a PC. Well, I guess this is gonna be the opposite of 2021. I feel like the first part of this year, like Q1, is already gone. The first half of 2025, the prices for the hardware, forget about GPUs, just ignore GPUs. The price of like everything else is normal, and then it's gonna get more expensive. This is the opposite of 2021. When 2021 started, the price, well, you couldn't buy GPUs, just like you can't buy them right now. So that was the same. But the price of computer hardware was kind of cheaper, and then it got more expensive at the end of the year. So it's literally like a repeat of 2021. 2021, you had DDR5 come out at the back end of the year, and it was stupidly expensive. We're talking like $800 for 64 gigabytes of DDR5. 5,600. So think about that. $800 for 64 gigabytes of DDR5 in 2021. This is why I'm saying, like, we are on a track going straight back to 2021. Like, we're on the train and it's going right back in time to 2021. With the way all these announcements sound, like the price of DRAM, the price of NAND, all that stuff going up, you can't buy GPUs anymore. That's just like 2021. It's 2021. You read stuff like this, that's basically the same as the Best Buy thing in 2021, except now Amazon's doing it. So, you know, like, who knows? Best Buy might do the same thing. Like, Best Buy might bring out the thing that they did back in 2021. Oh, you can't buy a 50 series card anymore unless you have the Best Buy subscription. So it's like, that's going to start happening again. I wouldn't be surprised. Newegg Shuffle. I can see it now. The return of Newegg Shuffle. Newegg Shuffle inbound, coming soon to a theater near you. You know, get ready. Okay. Here's another interesting thing. So AMD captures nearly 80% of CPU market, according to the March Amazon US stats, generates 5 times more revenue than Intel. So this is shocking. This is actually straight up shocking. I couldn't believe this headline when I read this. 80% of all sales for March for the CPU was AMD. Now, because this is Amazon, Amazon is typically worst case scenario for AMD. So I can't even imagine like what the ratio is at Micro Center, for example. Because Micro Center, I know for a fact, Micro Center, it's almost always AMD exclusive now, like in terms of like what they're selling. I haven't seen anyone at Micro Center sell an Intel CPU in a long time. Now they still sell them occasionally, but what's weird is it's like 14th gen for some reason. Like it's people buying 14th gen. Like people are buying or 12th gen, which is even more hilarious because that's even older. So it's like people are buying old Intel CPUs, but the vast majority of them are buying brand new Ryzen X3D CPUs. Like that's the main one. In fact, my local Micro Center literally just sold out like 2 days ago. They sold out of the 9950 X3D. Like that is the first time I've seen the 9950 X3D go out of stock at Micro Center. Now it's been out of stock at Newegg and Amazon multiple times now. But for it to finally go out of stock at Micro Center, because I know Micro Center had a whole bunch of those stockpiled, and they managed to sell out of them. So that is crazy, because the thing is, this is a $700 CPU. They're out of stock of a $700 CPU. So think about the revenue on AMD's bottom line for that. Because that's just the CPU. And then the attach rate, because you have to sell a motherboard as well. Like typically someone's going to buy a motherboard with that. Unless they already have like a motherboard for their Zen 4 CPU and they're just doing an in-socket upgrade. Most people, it's a full new build though. $9950X3D is better than the 9950X pretty much in everything. So AMD keeps dominating the CPU market. Basically, 9950X is more like Intel Core Ultra 9 285K, whereas 9950X3D is kind of like in a league of its own. That's why it's $700. Because it's in a league of its own. Guys, the 9950X3D is basically an RTX 5090 CPU. There's really nothing that really competes with it directly. Like, okay, technically, the 9950X and the Core Ultra can compete with it, but they're cheaper CPUs. So to me, that's not really a fair comparison. 9950X and Intel Core Ultra 9 are of similar price. So those two can be compared directly. And they also perform almost identically. They're basically the same in productivity. They're basically the same in gaming. So as far as I'm concerned, it's like you have 9950X3 up here, then you have like the Intel CPU and the 9950X together, like right underneath it, like that. So it's like 9950X3D is like S tier, the Intel Core Ultra and the 9950X are like A tier. They're like in a whole tier down underneath the 9950X3D. Yeah, but this, man, AMD just seems to have like so many compelling products this year. Like, I'm not even thinking of the CPUs on desktop. I'm thinking of the CPUs in mobile. The CPUs in mobile are even more impressive. Strix Halo is like the king. There's literally like nothing like Strix Halo right now. It's like the only CPU in the x86 world that can compete with Apple's M4 Pro and M4 Max. Crazy stuff. And then you've got the non-AI Ryzen 9000 series in mobile for gaming laptops to be paired up with like an RTX GPU, for example. And then you have Strix Point, which is like low power and just shreds multi-thread compared to Intel's Lunar Lake. So, and it gets better battery life. So it's crazy. It's like, man, there's a reason why things are the way they are. So I can totally believe this because even looking outside of just consumer desktop CPUs, AMD has a more compelling product stack right now. The problem for AMD is going to be volume. Intel can outcompete AMD, or they can at least match AMD in volume, if not do better than AMD in volume, because they can just outproduce CPUs. Now, that's always been true historically, but it's harder for Intel to pull off now because Intel's reliant on TSMC, just like AMD is, for the manufacturing. And that is going to hurt Intel severely, and that's why we're kind of seeing like AMD run away right now, or just run out in front of them, like in this relay race analogy. So, interesting times. Very, very interesting times. It almost feels like, it's almost like I feel like we've gone back in time and we're like back in like 2004 and 2005 when AMD was king of the hill. It's crazy to think that like 20 years ago, it's like we've gone back in time 20 years ago to a time when AMD was on top. They were the best CPU architecture in every objectable, measurable metric imaginable. So AMD 64 is what I'm referring to. Those of you who were building PCs back then, congratulations, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. Back in the days of AMD Athlon 64 versus Intel Pentium 4. I feel like we're living in an Intel Pentium 4 versus AMD Athlon 64 world all over again. That's what it feels like. It's strange because it's like, man, history is either straight up repeating itself or like we're in an alternate universe now. So it looks like the only Intel processors to make it to the top 10 best-selling CPUs was the Intel Core i5-12400F. I honestly don't know who would buy an Intel 12400F. I just feel like this is one of the dumbest CPUs on the planet. Like, if you're going to buy this, why not get one that has the integrated, or like, why not get one that has the K SKU? Like, why this? Unless Intel discontinued the K SKU. And then the i7-12700K. This is still an okay CPU. Now, this is straight up like mid. This is not a high-end CPU anymore. Like, even though it says i7, that doesn't, just because it says i7 doesn't mean it's high-end in 2025. That's not how these things work. So this is like a mid to entry-level CPU in today's era. So, but it's cheap. It's cheap. $234. I mean, that's the reason why people are buying it. So, but these are basically Amazon individual sales of the CPUs. So you can see Ryzen 7 9800X3D, Ryzen 5 5500. That's dirt cheap. That's $83. Ryzen 7 7800X3D, i5 12400F, i5 5600X, Ryzen 7 5700X, Ryzen 5 7600X, and the 5800X and the 9900X. So you have like all these Ryzens back to back. And what's surprising is the number of people still out there buying AM4 CPUs. So in addition to people buying Alder Lake, there's people still buying Zen 3 CPUs Those are CPUs that were new in 2020. Speaking of the pandemic. So people are still buying pandemic class hardware in 2025. That is crazy. So really interesting stuff. The Core i5-12400F is a solid competitor to the Ryzen 5 5600X for $33 cheaper and trades blows with the latter. To this date, the Alder Lake and the Zen 3 are hugely popular among the budget PC builders. Yeah, so there you go. And you know why? You know why they're probably doing this? Because both of these CPUs can be combined with DDR4 for dirt cheap. That's the reason why. We do see Ryzen 9000 selling well, but they are still outperformed in sales by many Ryzen 5000 and 7000 in many regions. So, man, I keep thinking that this trend isn't going to change because the prices potentially are going to increase. So these lower end like i5, Ryzen 5, those parts are going to become more popular if the prices go up because a lot of people will have a much harder time trying to afford an i7 or a i9 or a Ryzen 7 or 9. So you're stuck in the situation where the lower end parts are going to be the ones that people end up opting to get just because of, availability and price. So, but mostly price. So it says here, the Core Ultra 200 series has flopped, and the only best-selling CPU in the lineup is the Core Ultra 7 265K. And that's typically how it always is with Intel CPUs. Usually the 7 is the one to get. The 5 is kind of like feels bad because it's like the lowest end one. And then the 9 is kind of dumb because it's overkill and it's power hungry. So it's harder to cool. It heats up a lot more easily. So, and it's more expensive. So, and it doesn't really offer any better gaming performance compared to the 7. So that's the reason why the 7 historically is always the best seller on the Intel side. But it looks like that one managed to sell just over 500 units. The final results show AMD sold around 31,600 units, or 78.74%, while Intel had 7,500, which is 21%. This helped AMD generate about $7.8 million in revenue and about $1.5 million for Intel. Man, that is insane. This is a huge turnaround because, first of all, Intel is a much larger company than AMD, which means Intel has a much higher operating cost on a monthly and annually basis compared to AMD because they got to pay all those people their salaries. So you're talking like massive amounts of expenditure on the Intel side every single month. And they're bringing in from Amazon. Now, keep in mind, this is only Amazon. But $1.5 million for Intel. AMD, a much smaller company, way less employees, pulling in almost $8 million. This is huge. This is a huge contrast to how things were for these two companies just like a few years ago. In fact, even like last year. So, man. Crazy stuff. Okay. And that's pretty much it. That's all I had. Those are the main... I guess the one other thing... Oh, yeah, there was one other article that I wanted to bring up, if I can find it. Here it is. Yeah, Monster Hunter Wilds. Although, I guess we can answer questions regarding the DRAM or all that stuff. What was the issue on the godlike? The godlike issue was resolved back in January. There's no problem anymore. Yeah, I did a video about that. I did experience that problem on the godlike, by the way. I did fix it, so I don't have the problem anymore. What else? 192 gigabyte. Did you watch my latest video? That was already addressed in the video. GPUs are still nowhere to be found, near close to MSRP. Now is not the time to buy a GPU, that's for sure. Now is the time to do a platform upgrade, not a GPU upgrade. I think that's pretty much all the questions. 9950 X3D. Okay, we already answered that. So basically, if I was gonna build a productivity PC, I would get the 9950 X3D. That's my top recommendation, and a high-end motherboard. If I was gonna build a gaming PC, that's where the choice becomes interesting. Because like if I personally was gonna build a gaming PC, I would also get the 9950 X3D. Like 9950 X3D, hands down, is the best of the best. But if I was confined to a specific budget, then I would opt for the 9800 X3D instead. But only if I was confined to a specific budget. Otherwise, I would get the 9950 X3D. Like 100%. That's the best CPU ever. That's the best CPU I've ever used. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, that's the one I would go with. 700. Oh, that is true. Yeah. Sean has a good point. If you can find a 7900 XT in your area, that is a very good choice, even in 2025, because at the price point of like $650, you're getting a 20 gigabyte GPU. A 20 gigabyte GPU is very good value at that price point, because that will allow you, for example, to run Monster Hunter Wilds with the high resolution texture pack with the sharpness meter maxed out. So that is currently the best way to make the game look. So that is the way to go. 7900 XT is very, very good. Okay, can someone explain to me, like, what exactly does QuickSync provide that you can't do with the integrated Radeon on the Ryzen CPU? Because I see people mention that from time to time, and I don't understand what they're talking about. Because do they not know that you can do the exact same transcoding using a Ryzen's integrated graphics? Because it also has a media engine, just like the Intel CPU? I feel like people aren't aware of that. I think it's because people keep remembering, like, Zen 3 and older didn't have integrated graphics. But Zen 4 and Zen 5 have integrated graphics. So you can literally use the media engine, the AMF engine on the Ryzen CPU to do exactly the same thing that you do with Intel's QuickSync. Provided you're using something like DaVinci Resolve, or if you're live streaming, you can use it with OBS. We've tested it by accident on stream before, and it works perfectly well. So I don't really understand. I don't buy the argument about the QuickSync thing. Anytime someone brings up QuickSync in a comparison between like Intel and AMD CPUs, that just tells me that they're not that knowledgeable about like AMD CPUs. As somebody who, because see, the reason why I can speak with authority on this subject is because I literally have both CPUs and I have tested both. We might actually do a video because this might actually answer the question on that, the whole thing about, oh, QuickSync. Because I think a lot of people don't know that you can actually use a Zen, an AM5 CPU with its built-in integrated graphics to do the exact same things that you can do with QuickSync. A lot of people don't know that. So I feel like there's a lack of knowledge in this space on the topic of CPU encoding. So, because you can do transcoding on AMF-based encoders as well. So, and it's full H.264, it's full HEVC, H.265, so you have both. So I don't really know if there's even any advantage at all right now. Monster Hunter Wilds update in 45 minutes. What are we talking about? Like, I don't know. There's like some kind of sidebar conversation that's like all over the place. Something about gaming at 4K. Gaming at 4K. Gaming at 4K is where it's at, first of all. That's like the true enthusiast realm. Basically, gaming at 4K is like living in, what is that place called in Lord of the Rings? Valinor, whatever. It's like the place where Gandalf and Frodo go at the end of Lord of the Rings. They go to the Grey Havens and they get on the boat and they sail over to the Valinor. Is it Valinor? Basically that place. Gaming at 4K means you're basically in Valinor already. Valinor, yes, Valinor. 4K gaming means you're in Valinor. That's like endgame stuff right there. But currently, 4K is so hard in Monster Hunter Wilds. Like, literally, there is only one graphics card that can handle Monster Hunter Wilds at native 4K resolution. And this assumes you also have a 9950 X3D to pair up with it. And that graphics card is the RTX 5090. No other graphics card can handle Monster Hunter Wilds at 4K native resolution. This game is currently the new Crisis. This game is the new Crisis. It is incredibly hard to run. If you're at any resolution less than 4K, you are always CPU bound. At every moment of playing the game, you are CPU bottlenecked. On top of that, you can become GPU bottlenecked very quickly. In an instant, it can go from being CPU bound to CPU plus GPU bound. Like, meaning you can become GPU bound, but that doesn't mean that you're no longer CPU bound. You're still CPU bound while you're also GPU bound. This game is incredible. It's incredible how hard it is on the hardware. So this is the sort of game that tells me that we still need newer, better hardware, that even the bleeding edge hardware, like a 9950 X3D plus an RTX 5090, is just scraping by at 4K native resolution in this game. Nothing else comes close. Even the 4090 cannot handle 4K in this game. Incredibly challenging game to run. And on top of that, if you're running the high resolution texture pack at 4K resolution, this game can consume almost 20 gigabytes of VRAM, which means the 9070 XT and the 5080 are completely useless for this game if you're trying to play with the high resolution texture pack, because they instantly run out of VRAM. So super challenging game to run. Yeah, the texture pack is brutal on the rig. That's because you're probably running out of VRAM. The only reason why it's not brutal unless you run out of VRAM. I witnessed this firsthand with the 9070 XT because up until the 9070 XT, I was using the 7900 XTX and I was running full texture pack, like the HD texture pack. I was having no problems. Everything was looking really, really good. But as soon as I swapped over to 9070 XT, once it exhausts the VRAM, we were seeing 53 FPS drops. We were dropping from like 90 plus FPS down to like 50 FPS in an instant. And that's because we ran out of VRAM. So, it's all about the VRAM. The VRAM is becoming the most important metric, or one of the most important metrics, if not the most important spec, when considering a graphics card to be paired up with a certain resolution. Yes, we were also streaming it as well, because if I was not streaming the game, it would have not did that drop. Because I tested it before the stream and it was running fine with a high resolution texture pack. I start streaming and it exceeds 16 gigs at 4K with the high resolution texture pack, and now it starts dropping because we're running out of VRAM. That's what it's all about. So this is an incredible game at showcasing, like, the reason why this game is a good game in that regard is because just like Monster Hunter World, this is the sort of game that as the years go by, when newer hardware comes out, you will see the progression of technology. You will see the power of newer hardware really shine when playing Monster Hunter Wilds, because the newer hardware will be able to provide a better experience in this game through the sheer brute force effort of having newer hardware just crush through the game. You know what I'm saying? So it'll just crush the frames, because it was exactly the same with Monster Hunter World. When Monster Hunter World came out, a lot of people seem to have forgotten that when Monster Hunter World, the 1080 Ti was the best GPU at the time. And that GPU could barely handle gaming at 1440p. So if we go to that now, actually, I want to leave this one up here, but we're going to go here to the tech power up, and we're going to do Monster Hunter World, because they did do a performance analysis of Monster Hunter World all those years ago, and they show that Monster Hunter World at 4K used 3.3 gigabytes of VRAM. Now, I think this was before the high resolution texture pack, but just to show the numbers, Monster Hunter World at 1080p with volumetric off, everyone's doing good, but as soon as you turn on... Oh, wait, hold on. Did they do volumetric? Okay, I guess they don't even need to do volumetric, because look at this. I thought they did volumetric on, though. They didn't do volumetric on? For some reason, I thought they did. But what I remember is at 1440p, even with volumetric off, the 1080 Ti was 86 FPS. You turn volumetric on, and I could have sworn they had volumetric in the results somewhere. Really? They don't have volumetric? I guess they didn't do volumetric. But anyway, volumetric with the 1080 Ti at 1440p, what I can say is with volumetric on, which basically means settings maxed out in Monster Hunter World, a 1080 Ti was barely touching 60 frames per second at 1440p in Monster Hunter World. Now, today, a low-end GPU of a current generation GPU architecture can easily get 60 frames per second with max settings in Monster Hunter World, compared to a 1080 Ti, which struggled in that era. So that is what I mean, what I'm telling people. Monster Hunter as a franchise is an excellent tool to showcase the progression of technology because it sets the benchmark so high. It sets the bar so high for the computer requirements to meet. I mean, look at this. Even at 1080p, remember the mighty RX 480 and GTX 1060. These were the quote-unquote 1080p value graphics cards. They were the king of 1080p gaming back in the day. The RX 480 with its 8 gigabytes and the GTX 1060. You can see here that these GPUs are not even touching 60 FPS. They are sub 60 at 1080p highest preset with volumetric off. Volumetric isn't even on. As soon as you turn on volumetric, the GTX 1060 drops to like 30 FPS in Monster Hunter World. So that shows you how technology has progressed. Fast forward years later, and now Monster Hunter World is not considered a difficult game to run. But when this game was brand new in 2018, this was an incredibly challenging game to run. And it's funny how no one seems to ever mention that or even talk about it, and yet everyone complains about Monster Hunter Wilds being hard to run, completely forgetting that Monster Hunter World was just as challenging to run. The main difference is Monster Hunter World was not like super CPU bound, whereas Monster Hunter Wilds is incredibly CPU bound. Like, it is so CPU bound because of the use of direct storage. Now, this is one of the things, speaking of direct storage, we can talk about the update to Monster Hunter Wilds. So let's look at this. So starting soon at 8 p.m. Pacific time. So that's literally in like 30 minutes. So check this out. Required space for the update. 10 gigs on PS5, 6 gigs on Xbox Series X, Steam 6 gigabytes. But if you're using high resolution texture pack, 16 gigabyte update. And then they literally tell you, note, make sure to have enough additional storage to allow for slight differences in final size. Major changes and additions. Okay, here we go. New monsters can now be hunted after meeting certain in-game conditions. Mitsutsune has been added. Reach Hunter rank 21 to unlock an extra mission that can be... Okay, so this is the one that everyone's seen so many times in all those trailers. All right, and then the tempered version is also added. If you're Hunter rank 41 plus, you will have access to we'll say the hard mode fight. And then Zoshia, aka the final boss of the story, is now being added as a high rank monster. You have to reach Hunter rank 50. So for those of you that are wondering what Hunter rank to be at for true endgame content, Hunter rank 50 is the minimum number. Technically Hunter rank 40, but you really want to be Hunter rank 50. So if you're not Hunter rank 50, get Hunter rank 50 ASAP, because that will give you the freedom to be able to hunt not only Zoshia, but also the arch-tempered monsters, which will come later this month. We're going to be getting one of them, for example. I think Raidao is going to be the first one with the Gamma set, and that is going to be a really challenging fight. So arch-tempered is the highest difficulty content in the game. Think of it like, to use a Final Fantasy XIV comparison, think of it like, so the standard fight, the standard monster hunt is like normal mode. The tempered fight is like an EX in Final Fantasy XIV. Just to use Final Fantasy XIV comparisons, tempered fights are equivalent to an extreme fight in Final Fantasy XIV. And then you have the HR 50 plus required ones, are the arch-tempered. Arch-tempered fights are basically savage mode in Final Fantasy XIV. So those are going to be like the true difficult fights. Because I remember arch-tempered fights. Arch-tempered fights, if you know the fight, you can solo. for a challenge, but if you play in multiplayer, Arch Tempered is actually designed for like a full party to coordinate. I mean, technically you can do it with randoms, but my experience doing Arch Tempered in Monster Hunter World was with a bunch of randoms. It was super mixed bag. Sometimes you get people that come in and cart 3 times and you fail a mission like super fast. So, and other times you get people that know what they're doing, or you get like 2 people that know what they're doing, and then 1 person who has no idea what's going on, and they expect you to carry them, and then they cart 3 times, and then it's game over. So Arch Tempered is a whole bunch of like a mishmash of like trying to. It makes me think of like Party Finder Savage in Final Fantasy XIV, and that is the reason why I don't do Party Finder Savage in Final Fantasy XIV anymore. So Arch Tempered is going to be interesting. Arch Tempered is basically Savage tier content in terms of the difficulty. So we will see how they tune that. So all this stuff has been added. Okay, very good. The Gathering Hub is finally going to be added. Expedition. You know, I hope they add like a special arena at some point. Because remember, Monster Hunter World had 2 arenas. They had the actual arena and then they had special arena. This game does not have a special arena. The Expedition Record Board. Okay. Arena quests have been added. Challenge quests and free challenge quests. New status ailments have been added. Like, what? I mean, if they're doing this, does that mean we're going to get new craftable weapons that also have those? I don't understand what they mean by new status ailments. Oh, maybe something like defense down? But doesn't defense down already exist in the game? Maybe no monster does it. I don't know. Like, I think Odegaran does it or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Although that's bleed status. I'm very interested to know, like, what actually are the new status elements. New voice lines. An arena log page has been added. For hunter profiles, change appearance menu. Okay. Pop-up camp gear. This. Okay, here we go. Bug fixes and balance adjustments. Here we go. After unlocking the Grand Hub, the squad information counter will move to the windward. Okay, so she moves to the Grand Hub. She was the NPC for that. Fix an issue where consecutive uses of the barbecue grill inside a tent could cause the game controls. Okay, I never ran into this, but I never did the barbecue grill inside a tent. I always was outside a tent, so I don't know. I never experienced this. Fix an issue with the barbecue grill ingredients. Okay. Improve the response. So I never experienced any of these bugs. The rest command now. Okay, this is a weird one. I don't know why they're doing this, although I guess it doesn't really matter. The rest command now requires 500 guild points. I think before it was free, if I'm not mistaken. Investigations reward 10% more guild points. So I guess it's negligible. Maybe it's supposed to try to make it so that it's like, hey, it's like how when you go to an inn in Dragon's Dogma, you have to pay the innkeeper a fee to rest. But to me, it's kind of odd because it's like you're in a tent, so why do you need to use guild points to rest? So that's kind of strange. Increase the amount of points required for the melding. This is basically to encourage people to keep playing. So it's a nerf to melding in a way. Increase the amount of melding points obtained, but then they're also increasing the amount of points obtained, so I don't know. It might just balance out. Fix an issue where meal invitations would sometimes be announced or show up. Yeah, this happened a couple of times. For me, I experienced this one, so hopefully this one addresses that. Basically, like an NPC would invite you to eat food with them, and you would go over there, and they were nowhere to be found, even though the map was telling you that they're available. So that one happened to me quite a few times, actually. So I'm glad that that one is fixed. Transfer items has been added to the stockpile. Okay, that's good. All right, here we go. Fix an issue where some side missions were required. Specific turn-ins could not be... Okay, I never ran into that. Monsters at Endemic Live. Fix an issue where monsters will stop moving. I saw this. I thought it was like lag or something when I encountered this, but it was not lag. The monster literally just stopped moving. So that's a bug. Fix an issue where some monsters' wounds would disappear unintentionally after performing certain actions. When I saw this, I either figured that the Palico broke the wound if I was solo, or someone in multiplayer broke the wound, but it didn't give me a notification of it being broken. So I was like, did I just miss it or what? So I guess that's what that was. Fix an issue where the game might crash after blocking Gravio's attack. Fix an issue where the introductory cinematic camera would trigger on monsters you've already discovered. Fix an issue where the smoke shroud gecko endemic life would not appear in the Windward Plains. Okay. Adjusted the behavior of some monster actions. The distance between the monster and camera has been increased for certain monsters such as Gore Magala. Fixed an issue where Jindahad would unintentionally disappear from the locale. That would be extremely annoying to run into because that is the longest fight in the game. So for him to just vanish on you in the middle of the fight or like 3/4 of the way through, or even worse, when he's almost dead, that would be very, very annoying. Okay, so where are the things about like performance? Didn't they do anything with... Okay, here we go. This is what I wanted to see. System changes. For Steam, improvements were made to VRAM usage, and the direct storage version has been upgraded. So this right here might be the most impactful change that we are going to get that improves the performance of the game. This is not going to change the visuals of the game, but this will change how well the game runs on lower end systems. This should improve it, I would hope, not make it worse. So I assume they're doing the Hogwarts Legacy nerf. So for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, when Hogwarts Legacy first came out, the game was incredibly demanding in terms of GPU VRAM utilization. The amount of VRAM Hogwarts Legacy used at launch was insane. That was the first game that made 8GB graphics cards feel completely outdated and irrelevant when it came out. So what they did, they patched the game to nerf the VRAM requirements. And what ended up happening is if you had a lower VRAM card, like a 10 gig card or an 8 gig card, you stare at the ground or certain textures, and you would literally see textures load in and out repetitively or like continuously. It looked really, really bad and very, very jarring. So that was, in my opinion, that was not a good change, but they made it so that it was more playable for people who had lower end GPUs. So who knows? Maybe they're doing the exact same thing here. So maybe if somebody has like a 16 gigabyte graphics card, they can run the high resolution texture pack more consistently now without the frame drops, because it was dropping a lot when it would exceed 16 gigs at 4K resolution. So maybe this addresses that. And then the one that's even more mysterious, and the one I'm really wondering what this is the direct storage version is getting an upgrade. So does this mean they're actually transitioning from direct storage 1.0, aka CPU decompression, to 2.0, which is GPU decompression? If so, the game will probably be far less CPU bottlenecked compared to how it currently is. So that would be a very interesting thing to find out, like what exactly is that direct storage version that they're upgrading to. Fix an issue that prevented pigment information from being included in shared loadouts. Fix an issue with some display settings on the character models on the title screen and save data selection screen. Okay. Fix the issue with model display. Okay. Pendants weren't working correctly. Fix an issue with the... So, a lot of like minor things. Although this one seems like a big one. Fix an issue that made communication errors more likely to occur when firing an SOS flare right after the start of a quest. Background color has been changed to black for areas outside of the game's rendering range. What does that even mean? Fix an issue. Like, what does that mean? Like, what? Background color has been changed to black for areas outside. I don't know what that does. I guess maybe they have less color data in memory, so maybe this helps reduce VRAM. I don't know. Fix an issue where a squad leader leaving a squad would not correctly transfer the leader rights to the sub leader. Okay, that's. Oh yes, this is a much needed fix. Was very, very annoying as someone who would join an SOS hunt and then the host disconnects, either their computer crashed or they got disconnected or whatever. Like, it's very annoying when you join someone's hunt and it's like you and 3 other people, and then the main guy leaves, and then like whoever takes over can't recruit, like can't get a 4th person because it's like, what the heck? In a Jindahad fight, that's incredibly annoying when that happens. Because that's a long fight, and you don't want to be doing that when it was scaled to 4 people, and now you only have 3. So that is a huge improvement right there. So that one's a big one. Fix an issue that made it impossible in some instances to obtain the power charm. Oh yeah, this is one that I heard about. I personally never encountered this problem, but the funny thing about me is I completely forgot about these 2 items. So on my first character went all the way to like hunter rank like 70 or something and never had the power charm or the armor charm in the inventory, even though I did the quest for those 2 items like so far back at that point, and I completely forgot about those items. The second character, I did do the quest, I did get the items, and I didn't have any problems. So I never actually ran into this, so I don't even know how they would fix it. So it's like if you have fulfilled the requirements and have not obtained the items, they can be re-obtained after proceeding through another quest result. So you basically have to do the quest again? Like, how do you do... Oh, proceed through another... Maybe not the quest, but like a quest. Okay, interesting. That's kind of weird, but okay. And then they've got some quest fixes here. And then some other minor issues. Okay, so that is it. That is Monster Hunter Wilds. Probably the biggest change is going to be how direct storage is changed. This is the big one for people playing on PC. Okay. And that's pretty much it for this stream. It's kind of a short one. In terms of games, we're 1, 2, 3 weeks away from Expedition 33. So that means this month, at least the first part of this month, the first half of this month, we're going to be streaming either Monster Hunter Wilds, Title 1 update, or we will be taking a look at the first Berserker Kazan, or we're going to be looking at Atelier Yumiya. Any of those 3 games. Possibly Final Fantasy XIV. I highly doubt it. I'm not going to be doing Savage. I know there's people that are doing the Savage runs blind. Everyone's progging Final Fantasy XIV Savage Raid right now. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm like way too behind. But I might log in just to take a look at the game. I need to do the normal tier for the new raid for Arcadia. So maybe we'll do that. I don't know. It's either gonna be that or Kazan or Yumiya or Monster Hunter. Like, as far as I know, like, that's pretty much the only games that are gonna be covering this first half of April. And then once Expedition 33 comes out, that jumps in front of like all the games, and it's like everything gets bumped down. So you got Expedition 33 followed by Monster Hunter, and then like everything else. So until that game is done, then for May, Dune Awakening is coming out in May. I don't know if I'm going to play that, to be honest. And then Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny. We might look at that. That's a remake or remaster. And then at the very end of May, we have Elden Ring Night Rain, which you guaranteed there will be live stream coverage of Elden Ring Night Rain on this channel. Like 100% guaranteed. Have you tried The Last of Us Remastered? I have not, and we won't bother. So that won't be covered here. So, yeah, no. I assume you're talking about The Last of Us Part 2, because we've already covered The Last of Us Part 1 a few years back when that came out. It'll be interesting to see how Asus's Extreme board stacks up to the Godlike. It'll be of a similar price. It'll actually be cheaper.
Hi, what is your opinion on Strix Halo laptop, currently Asus available? Should I buy it instead of an Intel and NVIDIA GPU laptop for gaming and work?
Probably if you could find one, but you're talking about Asus. What Asus laptop are you talking about? The ROG product that they have right now is not an actual laptop. It's more like a convertible. So if you're waiting, if you want a Strix Halo laptop, you have to wait for either the HP that's coming out soon or other ones that are coming out later. But that's a great question though. So what I mean by that is Asus ROG Ryzen AI Max. The Flow. This is it. The ROG Flow Z13. But this is not a traditional laptop. This is like you can see from the picture, it is a convertible mobile handheld device. Like it has a detachable keyboard with the touchpad. It has, first of all the hardware is built into the section where the LCD screen is. So it's not a traditional laptop. It looks like a laptop, but it's not a laptop. It's a convertible. Windows tablet. Yeah, I guess you can call it that. Yeah, it's a touchscreen. It's a touchscreen, and all the hardware is actually on the section with the screen, not the keyboard. So it's like a reverse laptop or an inverse laptop. It's almost like a Microsoft Surface. Well, is that true? No, because Microsoft has Surface laptops. No, there are laptops, but they're not Asus, at least not right now. So there is the HP, what is it? ZBook Ryzen AI Max. Is it this? I don't remember the name of it. I don't know. See, I'm not an HP person, so I really don't know. It's the HP Elite or something. Like, all I know, I'm a ThinkPad person, so I'm waiting for a ThinkPad with Strix Halo, and I will buy that like instantly. As soon as that gets announced, I will be pre-ordering that. But the HP, I think it's the Z Elite book is the thing. Like, I'm not an HP person, guys. So hopefully someone here knows HP's product line better than me. HP Strix Halo ZBook Ultra. ZBook Ultra Ryzen AI Max. Yeah, I guess it was that one. It was the one that I was looking at. Yeah, this one. Yeah, here they are. These are actual laptops. Ryzen AI Max Pro. All these different ones. I don't know. My main criticism of AMD is like, why do they go with HP and Asus? Like, why did they do the exclusive deal with Asus? I mean, I guess Asus is okay. They're definitely like not my top choice for laptops though. So it's HP, I don't know much about them. And then, like, come on, AMD. Like, do you guys want to be true winners? Like, go with Lenovo, man. For real. Like, where's the ThinkPad? Like, why is there no ThinkPad with this? These are basically the competitors to ThinkPad. ThinkPad is so much better. I just think that people who buy laptops and are not that experienced don't know what to look for when buying a laptop. Like, laptop is all about the typing experience and the battery life. And then I guess the screen. It's like, those are the three things that matter. Yeah, EliteBook is ThinkPad class. Yeah, so ZBook is EliteBook? I think ZBook is EliteBook. So this is basically ThinkPad, isn't it? Wait, ZBook is not EliteBook? So then what is this? Because these all have Windows 11 Pro. If it says Windows 11 Pro, that means it's usually business class. Does anyone here actually know? I know EliteBook was the name. Lenovo has the best keyboards. Lenovo's keyboards are better than Mac keyboards. It's closer to ThinkBook. No, I know EliteBook, but I thought it was the Z EliteBook. I thought Z series was the thing. Well, anyway, this is the one to get. The ZBook Ultra G1A. I recognize G1A. This is the one that has the Strix Halo. These are all Strix Halo. With integrated Radeon 8050S and 8060S. 64 gigs LPDDR. Do they have any like one? Oh, yes. Here we go. Here we go. 128 gigabyte LPDDR5X unified memory. Oh, yes. That's it. AMD Ryzen. Oh, hold on. These are business class, people. These are not consumer. These are business. These are equal to ThinkPad. You know why I know that? AMD Ryzen AI Max Pro, not Max or Max Plus. It's Max Pro. Pro means it is the business class processor that has the full security feature set for IT, for a company's IT staff. Yeah, these are the professional grade. These are the good ones. These are the good ones. Hold on, I'm actually interested in this now, but I'm still waiting for the ThinkPad. Okay, here we go. Ryzen AI Max Pro 395 with the integrated 8060S, 128 gigs of LPDDR5X, 1 terabyte SSD, long life 74.5 watt hour polymer lithium polymer battery, MediaTek Wi-Fi 7, 14-inch 2.8K screen touch display, blah blah blah. Okay, that touch screen, I don't know if that makes that a business. That doesn't seem business to me. 3.46 pounds or 1.57 kilogram. So yeah, this is it. This is the spec right here. 128 gigabytes LPDDR5X 8000. This is 128 gigs of DDR5 running at 8,000 megatransfers. Incredible stuff. Incredible stuff in a laptop of all things. 14-inch G1A There we go. That is it. If this was a Lenovo ThinkPad, I would probably have one right now. Or I would have ordered one yesterday. For real. For real. Like, no joke. If this was... So if anybody from AMD is watching, if you guys want to sell way more of your Strix Halo CPUs, you better get these chips to that Lenovo company very, very fast. Because if you want me to do an unboxing video and all this stuff free of charge, like, get me a Lenovo ThinkPad mobile workstation. Get me preferably a P16S or a P14S, or better yet, steal that Intel P1 style. Put the Strix Halo in that P1 ThinkPad. That is going to be like perfection right there. That's a 10 out of 10. So rip that nasty Core Ultra garbage out of that P1. Put that Strix Halo in that same exact chassis. That's going to be the best laptop. 100 watt hour battery, 4 pounds. That is perfection right there. That is the perfect laptop. That is what I call the 5-year laptop. Oh, man. So this, I mean, I guess this is okay, but I'm not someone who uses HP laptops, so I don't really know. Like, it's similar to ThinkPad. It's workstation. It's professional series. This basically means this is on par with ThinkPad. You already hate your second gen Elite book and the gimping HP did to it. You do like what Framework is doing? The problem with Framework is the availability, man. Like, Framework is such low inventory and you have to wait so long to get it. Yeah, I really like what Framework is doing, but the problem is it's like if you order a Framework, you gotta wait like months. It's like you can't get one like in 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Med is saying, yeah, don't forget that Strix has quad channel. Yeah, man, people don't understand. Not only is this just 128 gigs of LP DDR5-8000, this is quad channel. Quad channel. So this is literally Threadripper style memory channel technology in a mobile device. And it's unified architecture, like a console. That means your memory latency for your graphics, and it's all a shared pool. It means that there's less like duplication of data because it's literally locally available. There isn't any of there's no concept of, oh, you have system memory and then you have like VRAM on a completely separate pool of memory over here on a discrete GPU. There is no concept of that with this device. This device has Threadripper memory channel style plus console-like low latency access for a unified memory pool. Like, man, this is legit. Like, this is the best mobile device you can find. This is like so far ahead in the future in terms of technology that to be on the bleeding edge of the mobile technology means you need to get a Ryzen AI Max laptop. Like, if you literally want like next gen laptop, this is next gen laptop. Like, this is literally the only one that feels like a true next gen laptop. As far as x86 architecture goes. So yeah, this is quad channel on a mobile part, unified memory. This is sick. So, now you guys know why I'm like, man, if there was a ThinkPad, I would already have one right now. I would literally have one right now if this was ThinkPad instead of HP ZBook. There won't even be a discussion. Like, I would have already purchased one already. So the only thing holding me back is like, I mean, it's HP, and where's Lenovo? I'm waiting to see Lenovo's roadmap. Just, man, I want okay, my ideal laptop would be Lenovo P1, which is a 16-inch Ultrabook, so it's a thin and light. It's not super light though, because it has like a big, meaty 100 watt-hour battery, which means it will have a really, really long battery life, because it's a 100 watt-hour battery in a ThinkPad. And it has the solid ThinkPad keyboard, super reliable, luxurious typing experience on a mobile device. So good. Carbon fiber back cover. Man, that P1 is so good. But unfortunately, it is an Intel exclusive. So right now, the best ThinkPads are like Snapdragon T14S or Strix Point T14S. So, yeah, I don't know, Nero. That's a good question. I didn't think of that. I know that the P1 has 100 watt-hour batteries, though. Maybe it's 90 watt-hour. I don't know. That's a good point, though. So the last one that I used was this one. The Lenovo ThinkPad P1 Gen 4. This one featured Intel's 11th gen on mobile with Tiger Lake. So this is Tiger Lake. There it is. See, the chassis. I just want this chassis with the AMD Strix Halo. Like, this is an instant purchase. This is like instant. I don't even think about it. It's like so good. Carbon fiber. Super durable. Dual fan cooling. Man, the only thing that would be different, this wouldn't be SODIMM. It would be LPDDR5, 128 gigs. But see, look at that big battery down there. That is a... Okay, it's an 88 watt. Never mind. So it's not a 100 watt. It's roughly a 90 watt hour battery then. Okay. So 90 watt hour. Thunderbolt 4, HDMI, all that stuff. And then SD card, dual HDMI, powered US or dual USB type A with powered USB. So really, really good stuff. This is what a real laptop is, guys. None of that gamer garbage, you know, that cracks and breaks so easily. So no, this is a real laptop, not some fake gamer laptop garbage. So this is the sort of thing that you get that is built to last. This is the thing that's built to last. But if I can't get a Strix Halo, I mean, I'll make do with this one here. ThinkPad T14S AMD Gen 6. Let me see. Does notebook thing have a review on that? I think they did. Yeah, no. Okay, here we go. So this is good too. Like if you're someone who just wants a thin and light, quiet, no noise, long battery life, excellent keyboard, great screen. But it's not Strix Halo though. It's Strix Point. There's this one, the T14S. This is very thin and light. This is like a less than 3 pound laptop or something. Like it's super light. Yeah, this one. This would be good, but I feel like if they were gonna do a Strix Halo of this, it needs to be a larger form factor. Otherwise, I feel like Strix Halo would be too thermally confined in this small chassis. But yeah, this is one. We might actually do a video on this soon. I don't know. Because we're kind of like, I don't know. I still have a couple of ideas for desktop videos. Otherwise, if we're going to do mobile content, we're going to do a video on this very laptop that we're looking at right now. So this is my current thin and light. This is basically what I call the travel laptop. So this is the one that I would like, if I was going to go to Japan, I would take this on the plane with me. This is the sort of laptop that goes on airplanes. So to give people an idea, this is the laptop that is called a business laptop. So this is the business traveler's laptop. So someone who's going to go to like CES, you know, and like write review articles or write articles on stuff, they would use something like this because it's really small. It's very thin and easy to fit in a backpack. It's not going to like weigh you down, and it brings the performance and it brings the battery life. So this is what I would recommend if someone wanted like a traveler laptop that is extremely durable and will last very, very long. So this one, we may do a video on it because I actually have this laptop. Spoiler alert, I have this laptop already. So we may do a Strix Point based video review of a Strix Point Lenovo ThinkPad T14S because this is the sort of laptop that I actually purchase. I don't buy gamer laptops because those things are cheap garbage. This stuff is way better than those. Also, they start soldered storage. So, yeah. So, this one has LPDDR5 7500 or 8000, and it's 64 gigabytes of soldered RAM. So, yes, it's soldered memory. So, you can either get it with 32 gigs of soldered RAM or 64 gigs of soldered RAM. So, the one that I have has 64, because you guys know how I am when it comes to memory. And also, if you're going to buy a laptop with soldered memory, make sure you max out the RAM day one because you don't have any other choice. So yeah, this one comes in 32 or 64. So mine has 64 gigs. Of course, it has 64 gigs. And then it has the Ryzen Pro, not Strix Halo. This is Strix Point. But we may do a video on this if you guys want to see like what a real laptop is like. Complete with Thunderbolt docking station. So we got the full Thunderbolt 4 docking station. I can drive 4 displays with the monitor. So I got like dual 1080p on the side. I've got 4K 27-inch big monitor, and then we have the laptop display as well. So quad monitors, I guess, like the laptop plus 3. I call it laptop plus 3. So I got 4 displays. Really, really good setup for productivity if you're someone who doesn't want a full-blown desktop and you're someone who doesn't play any games, because this does not have a discrete graphics card. It is purely the integrated Radeon graphics with the Strix Point. So this is depending on the CPU, you can either get it paired with a Radeon 880M or an 890M, or I think there's one that's like lower and then the 880, but I forget, 870M, 860M. So those are the 3 different integrated graphics options. It can sort of game, but not really, because it's integrated graphics, and it's nothing like Strix Halo's integrated graphics. So you would not buy this if you wanted to play games. Like, this is literally productivity only. And it's meant for being on the go because it's a really, really thin and light laptop. That's the reason why I kind of want like a higher end, not a travel companion laptop, but a desktop replacement laptop, which is basically what Strix Halo is, in my mind at least. So, yeah. But these are the sort of laptops that I actually consider. The ThinkPad P14S with 8840HS. Is my pick. Yeah, those are actually a pretty good price right now, Nero. Yeah. Hawk Point. Ryzen 8000 is very good value right now if you can get one. They're really good deals on those. Yeah, especially if you're somebody who is on the go. Like this is basically the sort of laptop that a lot of companies would provide their employees as like a company computer. It would be usually, it's going to be a ThinkPad, or it would be like an HP EliteBook, something like this that we looked at earlier. Maybe not this particular one, because this is probably an expensive one, but they would come up with like, they would order batch quantities of these 14-inch thin and light laptops as company computers. So yeah, all of this to answer a super chat question about the Strix Halo laptop. So I guess this was a little bit more information than what was originally asked for, but that's typically what we do on this channel. Strix Halo is supposed to be on par. Yeah, it's on par with the 4060 or a little bit faster than the 4060 is what it showed. There's already videos about it, guys. Like, it's literally out. There's already, if you want to see how it performs, look up videos of the ROG Flow Z13. There's already a bunch of tech reviewers that Asus sent Z13s to. They've already done videos showing like how it performs. It's phenomenal. The power consumption is so low. The gaming performance at that power consumption is so good. Like, it's insane. And what's crazy is it's insanely good for like AI workloads as well, as you can imagine, because of that 128 gigabyte GPU memory pool. So it also has the NPU, AMD's XDNA NPU with the 50 tops. Now, the Strix Point also has that NPU. So they have the exact same NPU in them. So you want to just do like the AI stuff like Copilot Plus. This is fully certified Copilot Plus. But yeah, ZBook. Currently, the only actual laptop with the Strix Halo is the HP ZBook Ultra 17. Because the ROG, this is, in my mind, this is not a laptop. This is like a convertible. So there's only 2 devices right now, but I assume at some point there'll be more. But man, Lenovo needs to get a ThinkPad out ASAP with that Strix Halo. Until then, they're going to be discounting a whole bunch of Hawkpoint systems, I would imagine, and Intel systems. Trying to sell those and move those through the channel. But this is the real deal. I know last summer we looked at a bunch of mobile devices because Snapdragon made a big splash, or Qualcomm made a big splash with their Snapdragon on Windows last year, and then AMD launched Strix Point, and then Intel launched Lunar Lake. So there was a lot of mobile content last year. However, there's even more this year, because this year there's Strix Halo, we got Snapdragon Refresh, we have Arrow Lake coming to mobile, and we have the Ryzen 9000 series mobile, which I don't even remember what the name is, but like there's also like Kraken Point and some other stuff. So I mean, there's like just so many different mobile chips this year. This year, as far as I'm concerned, is like it's all about mobile PC. It's not about desktop. Desktop is not where it's at when it comes to value this year. So if you're someone who is on a really, really old laptop, this is the year to consider upgrading your laptop. This is not a good year for desktop unless you don't need to upgrade your GPU or you don't care about upgrading your GPU, because the GPU market right now is kind of a joke. So it's really just upgrade your CPU, your RAM, your motherboard, and all the other things except the GPU. Yeah, people who are basically on like a 4 or 5 year old laptop, now would be a good time. 5090 laptop is a joke, man. Like, I don't even look at those pieces of garbage. Those are garbage things. Like, if you want a GPU, you don't buy a gaming laptop. That is not what you do. Like, you get this. You get the thing that's on screen if you want a laptop. Unless you're looking for some specific thing like Strix Halo for like AI/productivity/ I don't play a lot of games and I don't really like need a discrete GPU, like that type of person, then Strix Halo makes a lot of sense. But like 5090 in a laptop is like a meme. That's the sort of thing that's like, why? Okay. It isn't even a 5090, first of all. It's like not a real 5090. Microsoft needs to fix more Windows. In what way? You mean modern standby versus legacy S3? Legacy S3, they don't do that on mobile anymore. Modern standby is kind of quirky though on mobile. But anyway, I think we talked about this way beyond what the original super chat was asking. Wow, we talked about this. I can't believe we talked about this for 30 minutes. Anyway, I think this is a good stopping point. So, like, there wasn't really much to talk about this evening. So, that's basically it, guys. Yeah, the Monster Hunter Wilds update is here. So, there is that. So, for those of you who play Monster Hunter, now is the time to do the update. And, yeah, we'll be covering this probably tomorrow. We'll be streaming this tomorrow. Not a new Windows laptop. You can put this in your backpack for 5 days, and the battery will still be alive. If you're talking like hibernate mode, no, it'll still be alive. I mean, I do that all the time, and it's fine. So if you're on an old laptop, yes. Old laptops, yes. The newer laptops, no. No. So these are much, much better with the modern standby. And also hibernate. Hibernate in general, like, doesn't even, yeah. So. Yeah, if you're using, so if the laptop uses S3, which is known as legacy standby, yeah, the battery will be dead after 5 days. But if you're using modern standby, no, it should still be alive. Especially if it's one of these modern chips. These modern chips barely sip power at all when they're in standby. So, no, they can last 5 days. They can last like a week probably, or even more. Who knows? I might test that one of these days just to see. I'll just say that they're significantly better than laptops from like 5 years ago. So, okay. All right, that's a good stopping point. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. For those of you that are new, we do these live streams every Thursdays talking about all things tech. And if you have tech questions, you can feel free to ask them and we can get them answered live. Otherwise, we do live streams on the weekend. The weekend live streams are not as, we'll say, they're not as organized as this in the sense that we don't go over like news articles. We don't do any of that stuff. It's basically more gaming focused. So we cover like a game or two, sometimes more. It's kind of like what's new. So right now it's Monster Hunter Wilds Title 1 updates. So we'll be doing that tomorrow on stream. And that's pretty much the format for live streams on the channel. Otherwise, we just do the standard YouTube uploads that are based off of what people have been talking about on the live stream. So the most recent one was the DDR5. So we did take a look at 192 gigabytes of DDR5 running at DDR5-8000 speed on an ASRock Nova. So if you're interested in that, if you're someone who needs that memory capacity, do check out that video. And that's going to be it for this stream. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time on Tech Thursdays. Until then, take care, and I'll see you then. Bye.